This is it. The final round of commentaries for the 5-year anniversary of 108 Koans. So we start off this week with Koan number 100. Koan with a title, the length of which is constrained by the... so this is a pair of Koans, actually, along with Koan number 101, which I'll talk about in a minute. This Koan is another kind of the meta website Koans, along with, I don't know, there's a few others. Making a Koan and background check and Koan 74, I think it is. Yeah, non-existent Koan. All of these have to do with the Koan, the 108 Koans as a whole body of work existing on this website, and the fact that all of the titles of the Koan exist as headings here on the top of the page, and so the length of the titles is constrained by the width of this heading, which is a fixed width because this website is not fluid. It's a certain number of pixels that this heading can be. So the title is cut off because it's constrained by the width of the page here, as opposed to Koan number 101, Koan whose title is as long as it needs to be, regardless of the width of its container, the size of the font, or the overall design and functionality of the page. So this Koan breaks out of that boundary that constrained the title of the previous Koan. And by doing so, it actually breaks the functionality of the page. Because this heading is like kind of overflowing on top of these previous and next links, they don't work. And so along with Koan 74, this Koan breaks the flow of, if you're using the next button to like keep going, progressing through the Koans, this breaks that flow, so you have to go back out to the grid view and proceed to 102 from there. Koan number 102, No Bounds. This is pretty much institutional critique, kind of along the lines of trying to keep myself out of the picture. In fact, it's very similar in format too. I'm running down the street, holding the camera. But this time I'm running down the sidewalk of the street where there's all of these banners on the light post with the new, what was at the time the new slogans of the marketing campaign for SIU, which were, there's 3: Initiative Rewarded, Excel Everywhere, and No Bounds. So the title of the Koan is No Bounds, but the actual slogan is obviously KNOW, No Bounds. So this Koan is about, you know, this marketing campaign, kind of insulting, really. No Bounds, Excel Everywhere. This extreme kind of pressure to achieve when actually there's little support in the institution to actually do that. And then the third slogan, initiative rewarded, is just kind of laughable. I'm not trying to like talk shit, especially about SIUC. I think like this is the case in like any large institution. So I'm running down the street, becoming very fatigued, and repeating these phrases: no bounds, excel everywhere, initiative rewarded, as a metaphor for the fatigue experienced just being a grad student and trying to excel everywhere and have a lot of initiative. But anyone who's been a student knows that it's physically and mentally and in every way just totally exhausting and high pressure situation, and you don't always have the support that you are promised. Koan number 103, going south. There's a lot of callbacks to early koans in this last set of koans. So this kind of is a callback to Koan number 8, leaving and returning to Carbondale in 4 directions. I think way back when I was talking about this koan, I said something about like just sometimes driving around as a way to just think. And one night, this was obviously towards the end of creating 108 koans, and just all these things in my head, and knowing that I was going to have to be writing about all this and writing my thesis paper, because we had to write a we had to have a written thesis in addition to our the body of work that we created. And being able to even talk about 108 koans, which clearly I still can't do very well. But I just remember like feeling like I just needed to just move, just be in motion, and drive around and think about things. And so I started recording my thoughts. I should listen to the entire recording at some point. I remember it being somewhat emotional. But I just excerpted one little bit of it in which, God, I hate the sound of my voice. Ugh. Anyways, at some point I realized that I was driving south. That was weird. I just said it at the same time as the recording. I was driving south, and I had felt like I was driving west. And I don't know if anybody else has that feeling, but to me, traveling in different directions feels differently. I don't think it's really a sense of, I wouldn't say I have a really good sense of direction necessarily, but just growing up next to the Mississippi River, to me always was this thing you're aware of, right? And so going north and south is a very different thing than going east and west, and going away or from the river or crossing the river. And when I moved to Illinois, I can't remember if I've already talked about this in another koan or not, but when I moved to Illinois after having lived in Missouri all of my life, I suddenly was on the other side of the Mississippi. And so all of my reference points for direction were flipped around, and this landmark that had been big part of my life growing up was like on the other side, and it just felt really disorienting for the first time that I lived in Carbondale. And anyway, so this night when I was driving around, I had the feeling of going west toward the Mississippi, and then realized that I was actually going south. And like I actually felt a change in like my demeanor, or I don't know, like I felt the change once I realized which direction I was actually going. So that's it. Koan number 104, bus stop. This is a charming little Koan. This is a screenshot of the bus schedule for the like the SIU shuttle bus, and I noticed one day that it had these two different stops that occur at the same time and the same place, Evergreen Terrace. And what I realized I didn't really explain very well is that even though it says entrance and exit here, this is actually the exact same bus stop, because Evergreen Terrace just like makes a loop around. So there's only one, you enter and exit at the same point. So this is literally the same bus stop, like you're waiting in the exact same place. So I just really like the idea of two different stops that occur at the same time in the same place. Obviously, in reality, the bus enters and makes the loop around all the apartments and then stops again on the way out. But it's fun to think that it's just like somehow these two different stops exist in the same time and space. So I really wanted to like go and get on the bus and get off the bus on these two stops. So I took Sylvia. Sylvia came with me to get on the bus, and we were gonna get on at stop 35 and get off at 36, but the bus never came. Which then poses the question, would anything have changed about our lives if the bus had come? If we had got on the bus and took the loop around and then got off the bus in the same place at the same time, would that have changed anything? Koan number 105, reminders short and long. So this is just two photographs. Again, this is playing with the same location, but at different times, similar to Koan 104. So this was spray painted on the road that goes by the Kōan building. So if you're keeping track of locations and stuff that appear in multiple Koans, right around, oh, actually, there's my car right there. That's like approximately the same spot I would have been parked in Koan, is it 5, I think, trying to get into my studio on a Sunday. And then this is also the same parking lot I would have been in for Aurora. My car was facing the other direction for that Koan. But yeah, this is the street I crossed in Koan 5. And it's also the same street that I pried a soda can tab out of for transplant. And then this parking lot is where I pounded it back into the pavement. Anyways, This Koan, you know how they spray paint stuff on the ground to indicate where like power lines and pipes are and stuff like that. I assume this was something similar, but it just said locate with this arrow pointing up, which I liked. I have no idea what it means or like what was supposed to be located, but I just pretended that it was me. So I took two different photos, both where the arrow is pointing at the shadow of my head. And they're at two different times, so you can tell from the shadows that this was close to noon. So my shadow is short, and this was later in the day, and my shadow is very long. So playing on the word locate, in both images, the arrow is pointing at my head, but the different times and the different lengths of the shadow call attention to the fact that it is actually completely different places in the galaxy, in space. This point is in a totally different spot because the Earth moves. I'm just going to read what I have in my notebook here. Sun and Earth. I am constantly a different person. The illusion of a consistent self is like the illusion that the location the arrow is pointing to is in the same place in both photographs. It is and it isn't. It is relative. I am me compared to what? Koan number 106, cleaning up the coffee. This is another callback all the way back to the very first Koan I ever made, what Bruce Nauman did when he spilled coffee in my dream. So there it is. There's me spilling the coffee on my studio floor and blowing it around, and that coffee remained there on my floor throughout the whole process of making all the Koans until finally Koan 106 I clean it up. So yeah, this is a bookend to the whole thing, and obviously kind of symbolic. And it also relates to some of my other work, not part of 108 Koans, but I did a piece called MFA Whiteboard where I obsessively try to clean off every mark of the whiteboard. Trying to remember like what I felt at the time. I have no idea. I have no recollection of like what it felt like for me to be cleaning up this coffee that started the whole thing. But I can tell you now, I'm feeling actually pretty emotional. You could see the camera jerking there. That was part of the wonky image stabilization feature on my camera. So that's Koan 106. Koan number 107, Penultimate Koan. Wait until the right moment, then let it pass. I really wanted these last couple Koans to be just simple, poetic, and I guess a little bit emotional. I guess this is like a bit of a Zen statement. It's like just being okay with things, and if you treat this as a script, as a score to be performed, then anytime this happens, then this piece has been performed. And it, anytime in anyone's life that the right moment passes by, then you have performed this Koan. Koan number 108. A year from now at 6:30. I'm already tearing up here. Enter the bedroom. Turn on the fan for your lover. This is for my amazing, incredible wife, fiance at the time, Sylvia. And so the last final koan is just a small gesture for someone you love, which is the best koan of all. And that's it. 108 separate koans. I talked about all of them. Some commentaries were probably more interesting or more useful than others. But I hope that this adds to the body of work, and I will at some point soon, I think, do kind of a wrap-up conclusion video. So stay tuned for that, and in the meanwhile, just thank you so much for watching these. Even if you only watched one of them, thanks.